So you have squatted 900 pounds,
It was actually
and
931.
931
Yeah.
pounds. Do you feel that there is a translation, you parent, you husband, where is that correlation, even if you think it might just be subconscious? But is there anything specific that you would try and instill in your children as they're growing older that will allow them to know that they're living with purpose and for a purpose?
Fostering their personality
Mm-hmm.
and supporting who they are from the beginning.
So I think you nailed it, especially that first one, fostering who they are. Hi, Jeremy Olson. Thank you for jumping on the podcast. So you have squatted 900 pounds, 900,
Mm-hmm. It was actually
and
931.
931
Yeah.
pounds. How old were you when you did that?
Man, I think it was 22 or 23, I think.
Okay.
Right around there.
So I heard a rumor that there was two guys at our gym. You and Big Jesse were the first and second youngest people in the United States to squat 900 for a certain thing.
Jess was the youngest to squat 900. I don't know where I fell. Um,
Okay.
at, at the time when I had done it, I was still in the top like 5 people to do it in my weight class. So I could have been, I'm not sure.
Okay. Still very, very impressive. Was that when was the plan to actually squat 900 pounds?
We never really had a plan of like, this is what it is. It was always, how can we lift the most? And we'll just see what we can hit. And we started out like anybody else. We just were lifting 5, 6, 700 pounds, and it's like, all right, let's just push it. Let's see what we can do. So there's never an idea of getting to 9. There was never an idea of stopping at 9. It was just let's go for it.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, because I've never done nowhere near 900 pounds, that there is a certain type of dedication, work ethic that goes into progressing to 900 pounds.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
And I think it also takes a special mindset. Would you agree?
definitely, yeah.
So, with that being said, I guess, do you feel that there is a translation from you going out there and working towards a 900-pound squat and how you live your day-to-day life, or how you parent, you husband? Where is that correlation, even if you think it might just be subconscious? Like, how do we entangle those things?
Honestly, there were a lot of things I learned in the process, and there were a lot of themes that kind of came up in that process. And they're themes that I notice in pretty much everything in life, um, whether it's showing up for your wife, showing up for your kids. Um, when you don't want to go to the gym and train, you're tired, um, but you've got a goal, you've got something you're working towards. You do it anyway, just like in a relationship, just like being a parent. You have those times where you want to be selfish, you want to be lazy, you want to kind of just say, well, I want to take this time for me. But that's not what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put yourself aside. You have to look at the big picture, look at what the goal is. And, when I was younger, I was pretty selfish. And being able to, with a newborn, I've got to get up every 2 hours. I'm tired. I don't want to do it. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter that you don't want to do it. You've got a child that depends on you. You're going to do it, and you're going to do it happily. And so there's just like a lot of themes that I notice throughout that I apply every day, that I use every day, that just are kind of constants.
Okay. I completely agree. I mean, there's times where the easy thing is to put the child or the wife on the back burner so we can, like you said, have a lazy day. But the thing that like I try not to do is so like my son has a football camp this weekend that was Friday. It was 4 to 9. Today was 9 to 3. Tomorrow's 9 to 3. And I got invited to the lake by a buddy. He has a beautiful house up at the lake. And I was like, no, we got football camp. And he's like, you're the parent. You can cancel it. And it's like, that would be easy, but I gave my son my word that this is what we were going to do. So I have to fulfill those commitments because I already told him I was going to do this.
Hmm.
The easy thing would not for me to be out there helping all these kids because I don't drop them off. I help with the quarterbacks. But the easy thing would just be to just go and relax at the lake. And I was actually at our ranch all day Friday, came home just to take him there. And again, up at 4, between 3:30 and 4 every day is what I do. And I go and ruck. I did my miles. And then I even went to the gym this morning, which I saw you there, and
Hmm.
then jet home to go pick him up, then to go do that. But it's like I don't ever want to get in the habit of just taking the time off because it's easier for me versus him getting in that time for his little football camp. Because right now he's obsessed.
Right. Yeah.
When I've seen parents growing up who they would put things off because it's just little inconvenience. But then if we're putting those little inconveniences off, what it's going to compound into not, metaphorically getting the 900-pound squat.
Right. That was something that I really noticed is, especially with squatting, any kind of heavy lifting, your body is wired to choose the path of least resistance. That's just what it wants to do. It's what it craves, and it's almost always the wrong thing. Especially with lifting, if you choose the path of least resistance, you're going to mess up, you're going to shift, you're going to get hurt, it's not going to work. And that's the same thing with life, with relationships, with parenting. Like you were saying, if you just were like, yeah, all right, well, I'll just cancel it. That's easy. How easy is it to just say, all right, yeah, we're not going to do it. Let's go to the lake. It would be fun,
Mm-hmm.
but does that actually serve you guys? Is that a positive thing? Is it? I mean, fun is good. It's important to do those things, but not at the risk of giving up opportunities to get better at something, opportunities to grow. Let your son get a practice football. I mean, if this is what he's all about, then that's what he's all about. And if he's, wanting to do football, he probably doesn't want to be at the lake. He'd probably rather be at football. That's a great opportunity to just help foster those um, passions and skills and everything that comes with that. And he also gets to see you be a role model in, well, this is what we're going to do. We can go to the lake some other
Yeah, because the lake ain't going anywhere.
time. Right. Yeah.
But our kids, they grow up so fast. I mean, I remember he's 7, and I remember the day he was born, and it was just like, man, he's a ugly little creature. Because the day they're born, they don't come out all,
Yeah, they don't look good.
no, they don't look good, and it was just like, okay, here it is, and now he's freaking huge. He's
Hmm.
asking me to lift because I told him he can't play football until he's had a year of strength training,
Hmm.
and we go up to McQueen. He we do speed drills and he works with the medicine ball. He's doing lunges, he's doing freaking broad jumps, he's doing little squats with medicine ball. He's just doing a lot of body and he wants to go.
Hmm.
And it's so easy for me to just tell them no.
Oh yeah.
But it's like the correlation to the working out is I want to compete in a strongman again, but it's like I have to make sure that I'm continuously in the gym and then doing the annoying stuff that I hate, which is the recovery work, the rolling out. I mean, tight quads of mine that I've been having. It's like I have to do the most annoying part of getting that release in my quads versus the fun stuff of lifting something heavy.
Right. Well, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it
You
is. It's
know,
uncomfortable.
lifting heavy is uncomfortable, but you enjoy it. So it's a whole different thing of like, well, I enjoy this, so I'll sacrifice for that discomfort. Whereas the
Mm-hmm.
stuff you don't enjoy, it's boring to roll out. And not only is it boring, is it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to do it. Otherwise, you can't do the heavy lifting, but it's still just a necessity. It has to happen. If you want to push into those strongman meets, you can't do that if your knee hurts. You can't do it if your quad doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all the boring, it's all the extra stuff. It's all the time consuming. It's the monotonous. It's the everything else that supports the competition. You can do all the fun stuff, the stuff you want, because you did everything else.
Yeah. So, did you grow up with a father or father figure who ingrained in you how to love the process of being able to grind to get the 900-pound squat or anything you wanted to do in life? Or was this something you learned through training?
It was a little bit of both. I was very lucky. I had tons of great role models. My dad was and still is just endless support, no matter what I want to do. He's always worked hard, and he's also had the time for me and my brother, and it made us a priority as well. And then I had tons of uncles that taught me all kinds of things, and coaches, and then through the process of training, all the things that were kind of these pieces that were kind of shared growing up, they kind of all came together.
So, it sounds like it's that old saying of it kind of takes a village.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there were so many people that just played such an important role. And, I still have people that are kind of like role models or mentors that share these concepts or I bounce things off of. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know anybody that is successful that didn't have somebody that either supported them, cheered them on, guided them, anything. You've always People always contribute.
I totally agree. I've told dozens of people that even from a business aspect, you can't name a business where it was just a sole person. There's Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Um, Elon Musk, he had Peter Thiel and David Sachs when they were doing PayPal. There's just everybody had those Batman and Robins or those multiple people, even the people behind the scenes. There's just no one who's really ever doing anything by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, how do you? Are there, I guess, things that you focus on in your marriage? How many years have you been married?
I've been married a year. We've been together a couple of years now.
Okay. So, are there things that you focus on in your marriage that I guess are things collectively that you guys have wanted to accomplish in your relationship? Or is it more like kind of learned behaviors is how you go about it, like what you might have seen with your parents, or
Mm-hmm.
or are there those items where you're like, you know what, this was great from my parents, or my dad always gave me this kind of advice, so I'm trying to do this.
There were things like we have a goal. We set these like
Mm-hmm.
intentions early on. It's like this is what we're going to strive for. But I, like everybody else, I had things that I needed to work on so I could be a better partner.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot, well, that all was accountability and self reflection. And what do I have to do internally so I can show up and be there externally? And for me, it's pretty easy for me, it's pretty easy to kind of say, well, this is the intention, this is the goal, this is what we're doing. And then that's just what it was. But to have to like look internally and say, well, man, I'm just kind of being a little selfish here, or I'm not doing very good at meeting my partner's emotional needs, or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hard stuff. But the most important stuff, I mean, the easy stuff happened.
Yeah, yeah.
The hard stuff is where there's those hangups where, you've got to grow, you've got to go through the difficult stuff. Um, And so it's a little bit of both, but for me, really the biggest focus is the stuff I'm not great at.
So I want to kind of double down on that accountability. I see a lot of men, my generation, younger generations, not really grasping the concept of accountability. Always blaming others for their situation, not wanting to have that kind of extreme accountability that I'm in this place of in my life because of the decisions and the actions that I've taken.
Mm-hmm,
We have, again, my generation, a little bit younger generation, the victim mindset is popular.
mm-hmm,
You know, that it's not your fault why you are 25 or 30 or 35 and you're in this situation.
mm-hmm,
But the reality is we as men need to take accountability for literally everything. But if we're not, then we're only programming that into our children to that they too can have more kind of that victim mindset and not accountability. So, how did you come to the realization that accountability was the thing that you had to kind of take ownership of?
there are a few things. I think a really important aspect is having purpose. If your purpose is as a father, a husband, even just like a McDonald's employee, like your
Mm-hmm.
purpose is this. So what are the expectations? What's needed? What's important to fulfill that purpose? And your role in that is your role. What you do is your responsibility. How you feel, how you approach things, how you handle things. It's your responsibility to fulfill what that purpose or role is. If you don't have accountability for whatever it is, then it's not going to happen, um, or it's going to be a really rough process. But if you don't have a purpose, then there's no need for accountability. You're just kind of floating around. You're just kind of doing whatever because you don't have a purpose. You don't have a direction. And so nothing really matters. It's not on you. You're just kind of hanging out. And for me, I know I always wanted to be a good partner. I wanted my wife to be happy. I wanted her. We all know people who have been in or are in relationships with the wrong person
Mm-hmm.
and they're just miserable, but they just do it anyway. I never wanted that. Um, I always wanted to be a good dad, and I always wanted to be successful, whether that's financially, physically. I just want to achieve those goals. So there's my purpose. And so within those goals, I have to figure out what my actions are going to be able to achieve those. And then that creates this accountability. If I'm not taking the steps, I'm not going to achieve the goals. I need to be accountable for those goals. Um, and it goes back to lifting. Like if I'm not rolling out before a heavy lift, if I'm not doing the accessories, if I'm not eating enough, the heavy lift isn't going to happen. And I've got nobody to blame but myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one out there doing it. I have help, but I'm the one lifting the weight. I'm the one showing up. I'm the one that has to roll. I'm the one that has to eat. I'm the one that has to do it. And without it, it just doesn't happen.
So I love the process about purpose. I try to tell people if they to rid of their anxiety, you need to have vision and purpose, because if you have a vision of where you're going and what that purpose is, it eliminates all the doors. So therefore there's not, if because if you don't have any vision or purpose, it's like you're in a circular room with doors surrounding you, and it can cause anxiety because you're not sure which one to go through. So if how would you describe someone to find their purpose if someone's listening to this and they just are like, well, how do I know what my purpose is?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I'm not sure that I just knew. I think it was a process of like, what do I really want in life? What makes me happy? What do I enjoy? Um, and like, what do I want my life to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important to spend time and think, like, this is what I want. Realistically, I mean, you can do anything you want. If you don't want to do anything at all, that's an option. If you want to be the best at something, that's an option. Like, we have endless options, but what is it that you actually care about? What are you interested in? And what do you want your life to look like? And if you can find out what those are, then you can start putting the pieces together. So if you want to be the best basketball player, all right, so now what do you have to do to get there? It's going to be working out, it's going to be practicing, it's going to be shooting tons and tons of hoops, it's going to be this. We've got this set kind of path. If you're going to deviate, then you're probably not going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to be the best, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But know what you actually want. Find out what you actually care about and make that a priority. And then the rest will kind of follow. If, for me, I know that I want my wife to be happy in the relationship she's in. So that creates this big set of, well, this is what I need to do so that that can happen. And that makes me feel good. I feel really good about that. That makes me super happy. There's a little bit of like self-serving there, but it's also in service to her. Um, and so you just have to ask yourself, what do I want from life? What do I want that to look like? And then go from there.
What do you want to do? And just reverse engineer it, and
Hmm.
then it'll get you there.
As long as you're committed to the process, and even if you don't know what the process is, just start moving.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're gonna find out, all right, well, this is what I need to do then, or this is not something that's actually important. But until you know what you want and until you start doing something, nothing's going to happen.
I believe that you are fulfilling your purpose, or at least on the track of fulfilling your purpose. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
So with being on track to your purpose, how many people would you say societal wise actually are living out their purpose or living day to day? And like, what would you tell those men who are just living day to day in a quiet desperation?
Yeah, I think there's a really good amount of people that just live day to day. I think that there's this mindset that like this is just how it is. I just work a 9 to 5, or I'm stuck in this situation because that's just how life is. And then you get kind of wrapped up in the monotony of things, and then it gets comfortable because you've got a routine, and then that's it, you're stuck, or you just don't have that purpose in the first place. And unfortunately, I think it's just created a very big issue because there are so many people that just don't do what they want to do, or even know what their purpose is. I think for the people that are stuck, you gotta ask yourself why. Like, what is it that's holding you back or that's got you stuck? I think a lot of times it's either going to be because of comfort or it's fear, which being afraid of stuff also leads to comfort because you're not going to try things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, if you can understand what you're afraid of, um, then ideally, hopefully, you'll address it, you'll try to change it, you'll do something about it. But if you can ask yourself, what is it that is keeping me here? Why am I unhappy? Why am I doing the same thing over and over again? What is it? And then try to dig a little deeper.
So, being a father, I believe that through our actions and leadership, we can program our children to not fall into those ruts, you could say, of living day to day, living a life of quiet desperation. Because if we're leading by example, they can obviously see that there's light and we can do anything. But is there anything specific that you would try and instill in your children as they're growing older that will allow them to know that they're living with purpose and for a purpose?
Yeah, I think there's two really important aspects of that. I think um, fostering their personality
Mm-hmm.
and supporting who they are from the beginning
Mm-hmm.
is going to help give them that identity. They'll know who they are, they know what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy. That will kind of take them into directions that, create that purpose. So that's really big for me. And then the other thing is work hard, whether it's in school, whether it's in a sport, whether it's in a job. If you're not the best at something, if you work hard, you're going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having a hard time in a relationship, if you work hard, it's going to get better. So being able to help foster who they are as an individual, but also instill hard work, those two things, I don't think you can go wrong.
So I think you nailed it, especially that first one, fostering who they are. So I don't know if you watch any of my Instagram videos, but I fucking pump out a lot of them. And
Mhm.
a couple of the ones that I pumped out that I feel like are pretty gold is when when parents say they don't know why their child is shy when they're 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, but they were the most outgoing little creature at 2 and 3. Because if you look at the spectrum of children from 2 to 18, 2 and 3 year olds have the most confidence out of all of them because they're discovering things. They think they can take over the world. They want to jump off the couch. They want to do everything, right? They want to follow you up the ladder because they don't know any different. They're
Mhm.
just full of confidence. But it is parents who literally crush their confidence through their coaching or parenting by not fostering who they are and wanting them almost to get in line
Mhm.
and be quiet and just listen and not answer questions because they're inquisitive. They're
Mhm.
inquisitive little shits. They want to ask you about everything. How does the fucking world work?
Mhm.
And we want to just tell them just because or because I said so. And then they end up just being these shy kids who aren't curious anymore. They're worried about speaking out of turn or saying something that they might get snapped at. I definitely think there's a line of letting them be who they are, like in public, and them being rude,
Right.
or
Yeah.
it's like, hey, in this setting, we're in church. You don't need to just be screaming and monkeying around on people,
Mhm.
you know. So I don't want anybody to think you can't just let them run around like hooligans. But fostering who they are is a very important thing.
Hmm. Well, and
And
that's the thing. Like, an action is not a personality. An action is something that you do, and you can absolutely foster a personality, and also say, in these settings, these are certain things that we do or
mhm,
we don't do. You're not stifling personality there. You're just saying, hey, this is kind of what the expectation is. This is how we respect other people. This is how we respect ourselves. And that's it.
mhm,
Some kids are more hyper, they just have more energy. That's just something, that's not who they are. It's just something they experience. So you're absolutely right. It's not a matter of like just go run wild, but that's not you stepping on who they are.
mhm. Yeah, I don't think it is. And we have to, again, lead as parents by example on what they'll follow our actions. If we're going into a church or a nice dinner at a restaurant and it's more of a relaxed setting, like they'll feed off our energy if they have respect for us. But if we are, I don't know, gentle parenting where we let them and their emotions decide how they're feeling, giving them too much control, because children do want boundaries. They do.
Hmm.
They do crave for some boundaries. But if they don't have boundaries, then they're not going to have respect for you, because we're not setting certain boundaries or actions on how we act in certain areas. I mean, I'm just lucky, but I have two boys who are amazing wherever we go. But then they're a couple of the wildest, most rambunctious, freaking giving my wife heart attacks kids. But then when we're at a plate, somebody's house, we're out at dinner, people are like, oh, they're just so well behaved. And it's like, I mean, kinda, but you should see them here or there when it's appropriate. They are wild.
Hmm.
But it's that I want them to really be who they are. And they have totally different personalities. I don't want them to they look like twins, copy and paste. Um, but they have completely different personalities. And like, so me and my wife literally will have discussions on like how we can foster this of the one boy and this of the other boy,
Hmm.
and how we got to teach this boy to reel this thing that he has back in a little bit and maybe focus it towards a way that energy that he has is going to be beneficial. Because I have one of them who's really fiery, and he doesn't want someone in their bubble, and he wants to be aggressive, and he wants to wrestle, and he wants to box and like fight kids for like a fun. And it's like, okay, you can't do that in these settings, but when you're at football or when you're actually at wrestling, this is the place where you're going to hone this in. When you're um but just like kind of, because he's a little bit younger, like here's how you can do this versus just shutting it down, because I feel like a lot of
Right.
parents would just shut that whole thing down,
Hmm.
where I'm like, no, this is just kind of how he is, and we just got to be like, all right, here's the avenue that you get to express all of that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
And
it's just an energy. It's he's got
yeah.
energy and he likes to express it a certain way, and to say, no, this is bad. I mean, that's
Hmm.
devastating for a kid. Like, well, I feel this, I want to do this, and you're telling me that something that I'm experiencing so heavily is bad. And
Yeah.
then it's just like, man, well, then I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm just bad. I'm a bad kid.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's like, all right, well, here's times and places where this is okay. And here's times and places where it's not okay because these people don't appreciate that kind of behavior. They don't want to do that. And that's okay,
Hmm.
but we have to respect it. But I mean, can you imagine if he's like wanting to just get this energy out and express himself, and you're just like, no, that's bad.
Hmm.
It's devastating.
It totally is. I mean, my other son, he wants to win everything. He's ultra competitive. And it's like, this is freaking awesome. He wants to beat me at chess and checkers. He's the 7-year old every day. And he just gets pissed if he doesn't. And there's a part where my wife is like, it doesn't always matter about winning and losing. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If we talk to him too much about that, we are going to stifle his will to win.
Hmm.
We can explain to him that, like, when we're playing internally as a family, like if one Carstairs wins, we all win internally, but that he can keep that will to win in the on the wrestling mat because he wrestles and he plays flag football and he's even in golf right now. It's like, yes, keep having that fucking drive to win. Or he builds Legos and he wants to be timed. How
Hmm.
fast can I build this 4,000 piece Lego? And it's like, okay, if that's what you want, I'll time you, no
Hmm.
problem. And he just gets in the zone. And it's just one of those things where it's like, and we don't want to say any little thing about how that's not good. Otherwise, it'll just compound. And then, like you said, he'll internalize it as there's something wrong with me if they keep telling me winning's not everything. Winning's not this. Don't worry about winning. Why do you want to always win? You're not going to win. Like there's a too much of that compound and just rid him of his competitive spirit
Hmm.
and then him just not care about things.
Yeah, it's a tough. It
Mm-hmm.
really just comes down to like being able to balance it. Like here's a great trait. He is so motivated, so driven, and he cares a lot about how he does, how he performs, and that's amazing. You talk to any coach, any college, any boss that's hiring somebody; those are amazing traits to have.
Mm-hmm.
The important part about that is how do you handle it if you lose? Because that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Caring about competition, it's natural for him. It's what he does. So losing is not anything that he ever wants to do. So how do you manage loss?
Mm-hmm.
Which will be hugely beneficial. Doesn't mean don't try to win. Don't put 100% into what you're doing. But if you do lose, what does that look like? And that's what matters. But, we get so wrapped up in, oh, well, that's just so negative. It's just so like, he's got to he's got to be the best. What's wrong with being the best? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think it's fucking great.
Yeah, and if he were to lose and then act out or do something inappropriate, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But the desire to be the best is a phenomenal thing, and you should foster it and support it like you're doing. And it's just a matter of, all right, like my daughter, my older daughter, she's almost 5. She is so independent and so stubborn, which amazing qualities. She wants to do everything herself. So she's good at things. She learns things very quickly. Like she wants to be the one to do it. She gets frustrated if she can't. The frustration is an emotion we have to address. But the fact that she is independent is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And being stubborn, she's determined. She's very determined. She's not just going to sway. She's not going to be convinced. It's just she knows what she wants and she's going to go for it. And if she doesn't agree with you, she doesn't agree with you. And these things can go in the wrong direction quickly. But if they're fostered, if they're supported, if we address the challenging aspects of them for her, then the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, especially being that she is a girl
Yeah.
and she won't be, if you, like you said, if you foster her on this track, she's not going to be worried about having to fit in because she's
Hmm.
already comfortable in her own skin.
Hmm.
She's not going to have to worry about pleasing other people, which is a terrible trait for especially women, being
Oh,
people
yeah.
pleasers, young women. I will take a stubborn, independent girl daughter who can be like, okay, she's not going to allow other people to dictate her outcome, peers dictate her outcome, and that she's more comfortable and strong willed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's such an amazing thing. And unfortunately, there's so many people that do like to take advantage of girls that have been taught to just be submissive and to not really have an identity. Don't make noise.
Mhm.
Don't be yourself. Like there's this big push for that, and people take advantage of it. And to know that she's somebody that even if somebody tried to, she would never let it happen. That is comforting. It's very
Mhm.
reassuring. It makes me proud. It's an amazing quality of hers that I never want to go away. But right now, it does lead to frustrations when she's unable to do certain things. And so it's not, well, you need to be less independent. You just need to learn how to manage the emotions that are associated when it doesn't go your way.
So what is something that you would coach her on, or how would you coach her in the moment, or if you wait till after the moment when she's frustrated that she's not able to figure something out?
So she does a really good job if you let her talk. And if she can understand what's going on, that really helps. So if she's like feeling frustrated with something, I like to ask her about what she's feeling. I'd like her to tell me what she's feeling. And then there's an opportunity to address the feeling. It might not lead to an appropriate reaction. It might not change the outcome, but to address the feeling and say, "Oh, I know that's so frustrating. I know you're feeling so frustrated. I'm sorry, but this is how it is, or this is the outcome, or I know you're so frustrated and it's totally frustrating, but you can't just hit whatever it is." And so, she gets that opportunity to express the feeling. She gets to have it heard. And then she also gets the reinforcement of like, okay, well, yeah, what I'm feeling is understandable, but just because I feel it doesn't mean I can act out or doesn't mean that it's going to go my way, but I can still feel it. And so then it gives her the opportunity to kind of move on from what she feels. And then we try again, or we just do something else.
So what is your long-term goal? I want this to be for all the dads out there who are raising daughters, all the girl dads. What is like your one and two long-term goals for raising a daughter?
I think the biggest thing, um, going back to the previous thing, is just foster their personalities, their identities, for them to have a safe, open relationship with me and my wife,
Mm-hmm.
for them to be happy and to also just find the success that they're looking for and that purpose that they're looking for. Um, I never want a situation where they don't feel like they can come to me or
Yeah.
they can't share something with me or whatever it is. I want them to feel comfortable in that, but I also just want them to be who they are and to live the life that they want to live.
How much do you think her future relationships with men are going to mirror the relationship that you have with your wife?
I think it's huge. Everybody, kids pay attention to everything. They're always
Mm-hmm.
watching. They're always listening, and they like to see you have a good relationship with their mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, when you're little, your family is your family. Like you understand, dad loves mom, dad loves me. Dad cares about mom, dad cares about me. If they see dad loves me, but he's not caring about mom, that means he can also not care about me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of creates like a crack in it. Because how can you love me but you don't love mom? Mom loves me just as much as I love her. I love mom just as much as I love you. Why can't you care for her?
Yeah,
That
and she
means,
feels she's part of mom,
yeah.
that she's part of you.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And when you show them otherwise, then you're telling them that they fall into that category also.
Hmm.
And so, I always try to make it a point to flirt with my wife in front of them, compliment her, give her a hug, give her a kiss, and make my wife feel good. And I think that while that helps solidify their security in the family, I think it will also be something that they'll expect from future partners.
Yeah. Yeah, I think culturally right now we underestimate the impact that the example has of us being in a relationship that it has on our children,
Hmm.
especially our daughters.
Hmm.
If we are not treating their mother with the utmost respect, then they're going to just say, this is learned behavior. You can treat me as terrible as my dad treated my mom.
Hmm. Well, and it almost always goes both ways. You see somebody treat their wife poorly, they're probably treating the kids the same way.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other usually. And so then it's like, well, here's my parent, the one of two people that were supposed to care for me and take care of me, period, without expectation, without anything like that. And they didn't. So then they go out and they're in a relationship. If your parent didn't do that for you, why would anybody else?
Hmm.
And so then it's just like, well, this is just how it is.
Yeah.
People can mistreat me. People can be rude to me. People can do whatever they want because I've learned that the people that I expected to have the most safety, the most security, the most consistency from, I never got it. So it's just not a thing. It doesn't
Yeah.
exist. It's not out
Yeah.
there.
When it comes to that programming, I don't think oftentimes a large majority of people are humble enough to say, even though I was raised XYZ, doesn't mean that life has to be that way. I can
Hmm.
either change the way I am going to act in a relationship, or I can realize that the upbringing my parents gave me does not define how I'm supposed to be treated. Too often we just think too little of that. This is kind of like what you're saying. Well, this is how it's supposed to be.
Hmm. One, it's why would you know there's anything else? You've never experienced it. Like there's these fairy tales you see on like movies, but it's just a movie. Like you've never experienced the other stuff. And so when you go out into the world, why would you have any idea that there's anything else? And it's sad, it's unfortunate, but it happens a lot.
See, I guess my pushback on that is I remember being in elementary school and we were poor and everyone in my elementary school was poor. And it was maybe like third or fourth grade. The teachers we were talking about how there's rich people in life and how there's not rich people. And for some reason in my brain, I was like, well, I'm going to be rich.
Hmm.
And the teacher's like, well, do you have a plan? How are you going to do that? And it's like, if they can do it, why can't I?
Hmm.
Even though I didn't know any different. And by no means were my parents at that time well off.
Yeah.
But I guess also there's a certain part that I believe that in our heart that we can believe, especially if someone has a background of in faith, that there is something out there that is better than maybe the shitty situation that we've been handed.
Hmm.
So I'd like to think that deep down inside of us, we would like to think that there is a better option than the cards we've been dealt. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that every one of us can come to the realization because most people don't. But for us to say that there is no other thought process, like you said, even with the Disney movies, just a girl seeing that like glimmer of the movie Beauty and the Beast or whatever, like, you know, didn't go after the douchebag, didn't go after the dweebs. The Beast changed and they lived this happily ever life. And it's like there has to be some reality to something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, and that brings you back to, well, what do you have to do to get it?
Hmm.
And it's usually you've got to work for it.
Hmm.
You've got to work for towards finding the right person. You've got to work for the better job, go to school, get the degree. It puts you back into this like, here's the goal. Now what does it take? And it's just at work. You got to do it.
So we got another question. Being that you are a father of two, are there things that you do to specifically keep your marriage focused on you guys versus your lives revolving around your children? And I understand one of them is an infant right now, right?
Yeah, she actually turned 4 months old today.
So I guess that is a little bit different because she is all about mom, and
Yeah,
she
pretty
baby needs
demanding.
mom
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah.
But I guess in a year or
Hmm.
2 years, I guess I just see too many parents. They end up living their lives through their children and almost forget about their marriage and the importance of keeping that marriage, that fire constantly going, the time alone. And then you end up seeing these parents who love each other but don't know each other by the time their kids are graduating high school.
Hmm. Yeah, I think something my wife really wanted to emphasize early on was they are joining our life.
Hmm. I
And so
love it.
while they are, our biggest priorities, and we care about them endlessly, they are joining our lives. And it's not a matter of like we're living for the kids. It's we have our life with our kids.
Hmm.
And one day they're going to have their own lives. They're going to grow up and they're going to go off and they're going to do what they do, and I expect them at that point for their partner and them, that is their life, and I will come second to that relationship because that's an important relationship.
Hmm.
um, so yeah, with the 4 month old, it's pretty hands on right
Yeah.
now. And my wife's amazing. She does such a good job with all of it. But we do still like to try to find, like, after we put her to bed, some time
Hmm.
together, or um, we'll, if we need to get chores done, we'll do them together. Um, just so that like we're still kind of with each other, interacting, connecting. As you know, like the earlier phases, it's just kind of a blur.
Yeah, and dads are pretty much useless as far as the baby goes, but we need to be there to support mom because,
Yeah.
you know, especially in the beginning, babies in survival mode, mom's in survival mode.
Hmm.
We're useless to that baby except to support mom.
Well, and I think that's a huge aspect too. I mean, you have a baby, and it's like, man, I don't have a huge role in
Hmm.
this, and like you do, it's supporting and providing.
Yeah.
And so for me, a huge thing was, okay, what can I do to make sure my wife gets to stay home with the kids so that, we're not spending money on childcare. Somebody else isn't raising them. Like, what do I have to do? And that's a financial need, and so that's what I did. And she feels bad that I'm off at work while she gets to spend time raising the baby and that's all she wants to do. But I feel great about it because I'm supporting her and providing the experience and the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for her to be the mother that our child deserves.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels incredible. I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, and you already know once your 4 month old starts to be five, she's going to be pulled away from mom towards you because you're doing these fun, adventurous, dangerous things. You know, dangerous for a little kid because they want to
Mhm,
explore, and then is not going to be just so much 100% about mom.
mhm,
I think it's the best trade off in the world. I was fortunate enough that my wife was a stay at home mom with both of our boys. I mean, she's still a stay at home mom, but she was able to stay home. And I'm in the same boat as you. It's like, do not feel bad. This is one, it's our fucking job.
mhm,
But two, I wouldn't want it any other way. You mentioned someone else raising your kid. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago about how daycare is bullshit. I had a psychoanalyst who's written books about the importance of the connection with the baby and the mom. But in that podcast, I brought up how it blows my mind how a husband will encourage his wife to just go back to work at 6 weeks and not raise their children.
mhm,
It's like you by a stranger. And
mhm,
maybe it's not a stranger, but it's not you or your wife
mhm,
who is raising the child. And it it is so interesting to me. And she talks about the reasons why men have done that. Like they might have attachment issues of their own because they were the same thing. And Dr. Daniel Ammon talks about how he can literally see in a brain speck, it's a certain type of brain scan. He can actually see trauma that happened in a child at 6 weeks old being taken from the mom and being mom giving them to someone for daycare.
mhm.
And again, not everybody can afford it. So, um, not just, I don't want anyone to feel bad,
Right. Yeah. I
but
mean,
just there is the reality that there is neurological effects that happen when we make our wife, we don't make the sacrifice for them to stay home with the kids.
mhm. And that's the thing. Like, obviously there's situations where that might not work out, and I'd hope that everybody's just doing the best that they can
Yeah.
and getting the best out of whatever situation it is. But for me, it was like, this is what I have to make. This is how much I have to work.
Mm,
Absolutely. Like, and for me, it's like, what a gift that is that she doesn't have to stress out about it. And she does photography, and it's something that she really loves and enjoys. And so she still does that when she wants to, but that's an hour here and there, or a few
mm,
hours here and there, and she makes money doing it. But it's a hobby and a passion of hers that she has the opportunity to make some money on. But we are not dependent on it. She doesn't need to do it. She does it because it's a passion of hers, and that's great.
yeah. And she has the ability to start and stop that whenever she wants.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing. I mean, if she is going to edit, she edits from home. If she
Mm,
wants to do a shoot, she can go do a shoot. And it is important for her to be able to go out and do things, and for me to be home for, however long it is with the baby, um, just so she can have some like normalcy.
yeah. Well, Jeremy, this has been awesome. We'll have to continue talking about lifting one of these days. Um, and I'll see you, and I'll be bugging you about different things for my programming or my knee or I've still. I think I told you maybe a year ago that I want you to check out my shoulder. So that's still on my list of things that I'm
Mm.
going to bug you about.
All right, sounds good. Anytime.
But yeah, we'll end it here. Again, I appreciate it. Curious of how many other people out in the world have squatted 900 pounds or 931.